Hello everyone, today we are going to be having a Mualani deck, and with that let's get into the games. So yes, now that I've gone over all the new characters and new, well, almost the funniest of the new cards, that is the Fell Dragon. It's finally time to actually use some characters that simply got a buff in the latest update. And well, in this deck it's going to be Amber, but this is in truth just a Mavuika Mualani deck with Amber to tank the damage. I was thinking of showcasing the... there is Albedo Plunge deck that uses Amber and buffed Ayaka, but in the end I decided that that deck, someone probably has already shown it, so I'm just going to do my own thing, which in this case is going to be Mualani. Now the game plan is very simple. You always want to take the 2-cost bike with Mavuika, play it, go to Mualani, use Mualani's skill and then Mualani's technique, as you can see me doing right here. Of course, in some matches, depending on whether you want to end your round on Mavuika or Mualani, sometimes you want to start the match with Mualani. Usually when you do the first action. If you have the first action, then it's fine to start with Mualani, go for the Mualani skill plus technique. If your opponent starts first, start with Mavuika. And in cases where your opponent is playing a very aggressive deck, start with Amber, switch to Mualani, and of course if necessary do Amber's skill. This is against those very aggressive decks. But most of the time you start with Mavuika, take the 2-cost bike from the skill, go to Mualani, and as you can see here, Mualani technique after your skill. But now that I remember, in this match I in fact go to Amber to tank the damage, because of course Mavuika and Mualani are the important characters, and our opponent ended the round first having Catherine on the field, meaning Alhaitham can immediately do quite a lot of damage to my active character at the start of next round because of Emily's passive skill. Yeah, that was a lot of stuff, but the point is you can start, if you start first you can start with Mualani, if you start second start with Mavuika. Always take the 2-cost bike, and then only thing you really want to do is get Mualani stacks on the opponent's active character. And eventually you of course snipe each and every one of them. But yeah, the deck itself isn't anything special. We have just a bunch of cheap action cards and some extra dice to help us play certain cards. Here our opponent, probably because we were on Amber and our opponent realizes that Amber, we are ready to sacrifice her in this matchup, they decided to go for Xiangling Burst instead of Alhaitham's skill and normal attacks, which works very fine for me. Here, Amber skill, I decided to play Amber skill here because I had no reason to redo Mavuika's skill this round, but I do think it probably would have been completely fine to go to Mualani already instead of doing Amber's skill. Of course it isn't that bad doing Amber skill right there. We are still able to use Amber to tank the summon damage. Here you see part of the reason why starting with Mualani sometimes is the better choice, because when you use Mualani's technique, that activates Mavuika's follow-up damage. And if you start with Mavuika, go to Mualani, Mualani skill, Mualani technique, you do that pyro damage to a character that doesn't immediately need it. Because now you can see our opponent has 2 stacks. When we switch back, now they have 3 stacks, meaning it's going to be 7 damage plus 2 from the pyro.
Amazing.
Here, the reason once again why I don't attack, I don't want to end my round on Mualani. But you can count there, the damage would have been enough to take out Xiangling right there and then.
Outrider Amber reporting.
Here I end up actually playing the arcane card. This was one of the reasons like why I was why the skill probably wasn't the best idea, because I could have just played the Days of Resistance to whichever character I wanted to tank the damage with. But once again, this was very much show that when they switch to Alhaitham, they get less damage to my important characters. There's a lot of stuff going on. I probably should just pause the game for a moment to properly explain everything, but the point here has very much been that I'm trying to keep Mawika and Mualani alive and trying to seek the best possible moment to actually attack with Mualani.
You got me.
That is going to be quite a lot of damage coming from the Emily talent. Of course, I was not expecting anything like that, but luckily Mualani has all the HP she needs to tank that damage. Here, once again, you can see we use the technique, it activates Mawika's follow-up, and now if we switch back to Mualani, Emily also would have 3 stacks of the bite target, which means normal attack would do exactly 9 damage once there are 3 stacks. Well, normal attack to an opponent affected by pyro, that is. Food is not a problem because once again the burst does 2 damage when used, so there isn't a big deal. Here of course I was planning to go in. Our opponent using the, what is this, the Ancient Battle Arcane, trying to slow me down unsuccessfully. Now we see Mualani only has 3 HP left. There's really no reason to keep her alive anymore, so we simply go for the burst here. Of course I was hoping to get Providence there, because in that case I could have actually still switched characters and whatnot, looked for more cards to keep Mualani alive. But the +1 HP works just fine so that Alhaitham's skill doesn't immediately take out Mualani. And also we still have that 1 stack of Mualani's burst, so next round if we can take Alhaitham out, the burst will do massive damage to Emily. But yeah, like mentioned before, you can still see we only have cheap cards in the deck, because most of our dice is going to be spent on using Mualani's skills and techniques and switching characters. So there's really like no need to, like, sing your heart out. 2 copies of that is the most expensive cards I have in this deck.
A great oversight.
The only other 3-cost card in the deck is 1 copy of Amber's Talent to have that backup DPS. Well, damage. No, actually, no DPS. Damage. This is not a shooter game, this is a card game. But anyway, you can see here, we end our round first, meaning that the shock missile attacks before the opponent's summons, taking out Emily and winning me this first game. On to the next one. Now in the last game I went through a lot of the game plan in quite the rush, so in this match I actually try to explain it more slowly. There you can see the Amber talent, one copy of that indeed in the deck, because it's a good card to have for some backup damage. Here once again our opponent starts first, so we start with Mawika. And this is one of the reasons why starting with Mawika is often the better choice. Because if you have bad dice, Mawika's 2-cost bike fixes you some dice. Of course, if you think about it, starting with Mualani and having bad dice, you first need 3 Hydro dice just to do Mualani skill plus technique. Then ideally you also want to round 1 do Mawika's skill, which requires 3 Pyro dice. So if you start with Mualani, you actually need to get 6 good dice round 1, which most of the time doesn't happen. Which is why starting with Mawika, when you only need 3 Pyro dice, and in the ideal rotation, which is Mawika skill 2-cost bike onto Mualani, Mualani skill plus Mualani technique, you only need 1 Hydro dice and 3 Pyro dice round 1 if you start with Mawika and select the 2-cost bike like you always should with this deck. The only times you want to take the 3-cost bike is like Mualani is out of the game type of scenario and Mawika doesn't have full burst stacks. And alternatively 1-cost bike with this deck, probably never, because you can always take the 2-cost bike to fix some of your dice to do Mualani's skill. But yes, one of the reasons, in that last game all of my opponents were 10 HP characters. I somewhat explained the fact that if you start with Mawika, go to Mualani, use Mualani's technique, that 1 Pyro damage you Mawika's skill follow-up does when Mualani uses the technique gets kind of wasted on 10 HP. Well, on 10 HP character it doesn't actually get wasted as much, but on 12 HP character it somewhat gets wasted, that damage. Especially if your opponent stays on the same character. Now here, a really bold move playing that Melusine card to generate random companions. I mean, in this matchup, I'd say it mostly works out for my opponent because none of these cards are actually really good for my deck. Like Shudong is really good, but I only have like 4 food cards, 2 Mystic Soups, 2 Sing Your Heart Outs. Zetaria is decent, but as you can see I already have a bunch of good cards that give me cards to my hand, and well, Elin doesn't really get used. We use techniques instead of skills, so Elin doesn't really get any value. Sir Arthur, well, that's just a +1 card. But this already makes me guess our opponent is playing the Melusine sword. Very respectable indeed. And here you can see what I meant with Zetaria being kind of pointless in this. Well, getting Zetaria is kind of pointless. I already have enough draw power from everything else. We play the Golden Troops already because we don't have enough dice for Mualani's skill anymore once we've played the 2-cost bike. Also a quick tip, round 1, if you get Boar Princess in your starting hand, keep it in your starting hand, because round 2 it becomes very useful. Because both Mawika's technique and Mualani's technique, when they run out of usage, activate the Boar Princess. Meaning you can get full value from Boar Princess round 2 if you get the ideal rotation, which you can see right here. Mawika bike on the Mualani, Mualani skill, Mualani technique, and you go back to Mavuika, so you can redo Mavuika's 2 cost. Mavuika's bike technique. Here you can see our opponent trying to stay alive, trying to keep Diona alive, but also seeing the Melusine sword coming out already. I mean, understandable, but there's, in my opinion, they are activating the Liben, so I guess it's completely fine playing the weapon already. But there you can kind of see some of the follow-ups from Mavuika are wasted. I mean, yeah, it does take out some of the shields from Diona, but once again here we were looking for Providence to actually take out Diona this round, but unfortunately we do not get it.
Woohoo! Let's go!
There you can see the Ball Princess activates again. We actually get really lucky with Luthien's Goodwill. Giving us double heals if you followed the game. Mavuika got HP and now Mualani got HP, which was really nice. So you can see here, if we had that Providence, we would have had enough dice to actually do Mualani's technique, switch back to Mualani and normal attack instead of the burst for Diona, but actually, no, not normal attack, because we already had the Mystic Soup. But anyway, it would have been easier to take out Diona in one hit instead of having to spend that bit of extra. Well, the first usage of Shark Missile on, well, also on Diona. But to put it simply, against 12 HP characters, starting with Mualani is the better choice, because then you have easier time getting more stacks before wasting Mavuika's Pyro follow-up. Because the Pyro follow-up combined with the normal attack, that's a 4 damage combo, and most of all, it's an even amount of damage. Considering bite targets increase damage by 2, and when you have the follow-up and you do a normal attack with Mualani, that basically means you need 2 less bite targets on any character to take them out with a normal attack. Which is why starting with Mualani is better against 12 HP characters, while starting against 10 HP characters it's completely fine going with Mavuika. Also, my opponent getting unlucky with the Luthien's Goodwill, taking the pierce damage there. Now we have full burst stacks on Mavuika and we have Pyro Resonance, so we might as well use it to take out Ito with the weapon. After all, our opponent still has 14 cards. There's still a good chance they do not have the second weapon in hand, which seems to be the case since they are using the technique. But they draw the weapon only with 4 stacks, which at this stage, considering they are running a Melusine sword deck, is not a good look. Had they full stacks, this would be actually scary, because Noel with full stack Melusine sword, that is scary, especially with Millilith on the field as well. Sir Arthur actually giving us Harvest Time, which actually gives value to Shudon once again. We of course played the Sing Your Heart Out there earlier, but now we have Harvest Time here as well. Second Arcane possibility for my opponent. Luckily they don't get any, Fight for the Dead shenanigans from that, so it works out. Not really good food, so I was hoping for Mystic Soup or anything to increase the damage, but because we don't get it, we go for the heals. Here we of course do the skill to tank the damage from Noel. We're gonna see their second Arcane is spent on the Stove God. And there comes a bunch of healing guards. You're gonna see There's no way I'm getting through all of this, even with Mualani. I'm not going to get through all of that, so we are simply going to spend our dice building up those stacks on Noelle. And here you can see once again the follow-ups are kind of wasted, but luckily here we had Mawika's Crucible of Death and Life to save some of those, refund some of those Night Soul points. And the Fool actually coming in useful here, making sure there's no way Noelle can take out Mawika. After all, we still have the Amber Baron Bunny to protect Mawika as well. They still have a good amount of shields, of course, which means these right here, by the way, they should have done a normal attack. They still had the full plate on the field. Normal attack would have been a bit more damage for Noelle. But I do not exactly blame them. It's not like Mawika would have been taken out anyway. We use our arcane card just to make sure that no surprises will come for Mualani. Of course, we did check. You can see 7 damage from the burst, not enough to take out Mawika, but had they played, let's say, Adeptus or anything similar, the Day of Resistance would not have been enough to keep Mawika alive against 2 attacks, which is why we played the Day of Resistance on Mualani.
Whoa, what a
Because at
lineup.
this point
We'll be
it's Mualani that can take out Noelle and no one else. And this of course is the strength of Mualani. As long as she is alive, there is the threat of a massive damage. Here, I mean, I could have just switched characters a couple times to finish the game in one attack, but I thought it was funny to end the game with just a 1 damage normal attack. Anyway, on to the next match. So I've kind of gone over everything there is to say about this deck. I mean, it's very simple. You get the 2-cost bike on Mawika, you use that to fix dice when you go to Mualani, and you just Mualani technique back and forth with these 2 characters until you have enough stacks on your opponent's characters to take them out. Of course, as you saw in the previous match, we are using Pyro Resonance in this deck. And one of the reasons why we are using that is, as you saw, like what I explained with the follow-up from Mawika's skill, the Pyro damage. That actually gets useful when you have Pyro Resonance. Because once again, most characters in the game have an even amount of HP. The follow-up from Mawika's skill does that 1 damage. Pyro Resonance increases damage by 3. 1 plus 3 is 4, you get to even numbers once again, and even numbers are good with Mualani, because it against most characters it means you have easier time to take them out. By the way, in this matchup they are definitely playing Fell Dragon. I mean, look at this deck. If it wasn't for Baisu, if it was another character, not Baisu, then there would have been the possibility that it's just an odd burning deck. But no, they are running Baisu, Mawika, Emily, that is a Fell Dragon deck. And like in my previous video I mentioned, I cannot exactly respect Fell Dragon decks that use Mawika. Because like I mentioned in that video, there is nothing, once the combo is up, there is nothing the player, you can do, the opponent can do against the Fell Dragon. Here once again, Bow Princess, you can see the 2-cost bike gets spent, we get 1 die, Mualani's technique gets spent, we get 1 die. We actually do a normal attack here because Mawika's follow-up finishes the job. And now they have less one round summons to get stacks for Fell Dragon with. Also, Emily already having 2 bite target stacks is very good here. Of course, it's not quite enough, because even if we do a burst, it would be 6 damage followed by 2 from the burst summon itself, which is not enough. So instead of bursting, I mean, I could have tried to go for Fury with Mystic Soup, but I did consider that to be too unlikely to happen. So we simply go for the Mystic Soup on the Mawika to... Well, I was hoping for +2 heals, but we don't get it, so we just take the +1 max HP instead. Also, this way I still have Mawika's burst, which I can use on both of their characters. After all, at this point in the game, the 2-cost bike is no longer really a necessity to have. Of course, it's good to have because it's a fast action to Mualani, and we aren't using any other forms of fast actions with this deck. Once again, looking for Fury or Providence, and this time we actually do get Providence. Very lovely. We play the Arcane card so that Emily's burst does not take out Mawika, considering there's the follow-up, well, activation of Emily's passive skill. I mean, at this point it should be entirely clear they are using Fell Dragon, and in this case it actually works out in taking out Mawika here. Of course, no gamblers, only 4 damage stacks with the Fell Dragon, meaning that they would need 3 more activations only to get Amber out of the game. And considering they switch characters, I kind of knew it's very unlikely that they have multiple activations of the Fell Dragon.
Check this out.
Finally, time for the burst. Now here, admittedly, I could have done Mualani's technique first, before the burst, because even if they switch characters, Mawika would get 1 more bite target in that case, which of course against Fell Dragon, Mawika is the character you want to take out. And all they could have really done is redo a skill with Emily, or done a normal attack with those 3 dice, like damage wise. So a skill from Mualani would have been fine there. I end up not doing it yet. They actually did have more activations of the Fell Dragon, and you can see here it works out. They with luck get the Fell Dragon to actually activate from the surfing body, and now I'm in a bit of an pickle. I could do a normal attack here, but I simply decide to take the first action next round. After all, if they get lucky and have some more ways of activating the Fell Dragon that is by Mawika's talent card, I mean, you can see 2 activations now is enough to take out Amber. And not to mention they have Mawika's burst. Not as full stacks, but that's still 5 damage, 6 considering the Dendro. So I do the only thing I really can do, which is Baron Bunny to tank some of the damage, and hoping that they do not have that many activations for the Fell Dragon. Here we finally go for the discounted attack, because I see the possibility that if they are now unable to take out Amber, Fiery Rain will take out Mawika. And we were lucky, they only had one activation for the Fell Dragon, and with that I win the game.
The flame burns.
On to the next one. Couple more games to go for today, and the next one is Lure Armory. Definitely a good deck, though not, I'd say like back in the day that deck was definitely like top tier, one of the best you can play. Nowadays it's still very good, but not as good as the biggest meta decks out there. But definitely a good deck. If you haven't played that, I recommend trying it out. Here you can see we start with Mualani. This was because I was actually expecting them to start with Shenhe instead of Yelan, but also Golden House, Master Shang, and a King Squire round 1. Not bad from my opponent. And of course, the key to success with my deck is to keep Mualani alive. It's really bad to take so much damage immediately. Surprisingly, the opponent not going for a normal attack and instead doing another skill. Considering they only had, you know, well, 2 cards because they tuned one there. Very surprising they didn't go for a normal attack to get more cards. Because usually with that deck, if you go with Yelan, you want to do a skill, you want to do a normal attack to get the cards instead of just one more damage. Now a second weapon for Yelan, that's really good for my opponent. I mean, at this stage I'm like, this is not good. They're about to burst Yelan. But here you can see we get lucky with Fury from the Mystic Soup, so we are actually able to take out Yelan right here and now. I decided not to play the Arcane card yet, because honestly they have 2 cards. I was expecting like at most skill plus normal attack from Shenhe. You can once again we had 4 Princess active, but like what is this? Another Golden House and a Moon Piercer. What the hell, my opponent is lucky in this match. Since we are unable to do anything with Mualani, and also double skill, are you for real? Amalia is really lucky in this match. We go for Amber skill to tank some damage. I mean, I could have switched to Mavuika here or Mualani already, but considering their luck so far in this game, I was too scared because of course a skill from Shenhe is still currently enough to take out Mavuika and Mualani both, even though there's Baron Bunny, but the burst is not. Well, it's enough to take out Mavuika, but not enough to take out Mualani. But to put it simply, they were so lucky so far in this game that I was scared to actually switch characters here. Even though like starting with Mualani and instantly bursting her to get sure that we get the burst would have been the ideal scenario for me here. They switched to Shao. I of course play the Boar Princess and Day of Resistance on Mualani. And they have another weapon, like, what the hell, man? Or woman, or other. That's just too good of a luck. Boar Princess luckily activates there, so we get some extra value. We actually use the technique here to activate Boar Princess a second time, so now we can play a normal attack. Also, I use the food there so that in the scenario that I want to switch to Mavuika, I can. But I do a normal attack so that I can follow it up with the burst to maximize damage on my opponent. And yeah, once again you can see we are left with 1 dice, simply for the reason so that if there were any like surprises, I mean, they at this point I'm scared of whatever they might have in that as that last card in their hand. But in the scenario that I wanted to switch to Mawiga, for example, if they have a fast swap right here and now, they can fast swap to Shao and instantly, if I went to Mawiga here, they could burst or whatever with Shao, instantly take out Mawiga and freeze Amber. But to put it simply, I was scared that there might be some surprises coming my way, so I made sure to keep that one die as backup. But as you can see, Shenhe gets taken out by the summons, very good for me, since Shao alone, the only way they can win is if they have the Winds of Freedom Arcane card. And they do not. Their luck finally ran out and I win the game. On to the last game. Now for the last match we have Chaos Spear and something of a stall deck. I mean, I would call that a mid-range deck if it wasn't for Barbara, but because Barbara is there I'm going to call it a stall deck. And if you didn't know, Mualani of course the perfect counter to practically every stall deck out there, because the bite target is a form of extra damage that the opponent simply cannot get rid of. The only thing the opponent can do against Mualani if they are playing a stall deck is to take out Mualani before she wipes the whole team.
Not now.
And you can see here, I mean, of course our opponent doing stall shenanigans with Layla's skill and tenacity. Of course, like the only thing I feared with this matchup, if they had, because they are running Tartaglia in that sort of deck, they definitely have a weapon for Tartaglia. If they played weapon round 1, because as you saw, they would have, hold on, which one of us actually started first in this match? I didn't follow. Okay, I was starting first, so there wasn't actually a really big fear of Mualani taking a lot of damage, but had my opponent started first and had they had a weapon to play on Tartaglia, they would have immediately gotten 2 attacks on the Mualani, which would have been really bad for me. Luckily that did not happen, and Mualani is perfectly safe for now. Of course there is the threat of a freeze coming. Also here you can see once again we kept the Boar Princess because it's very useful to have. We do not play the Scions of Canopy because there's nothing I can do with the extra die. So instead of that we simply end our round after playing the 2-cost bike onto Mawiga. Also this way at least our opponent has to do something while I can just use the Mawiga's technique onto Mualani's skill. Boar Princess very important because once again Mualani's technique is about to run out, so it immediately gives us 1 dice. We play the Day of Resistance because it's quite clear my opponent is going for the burst. I mean, the moment they did a normal attack onto Mawiga, I knew they were either going to burst Layla or continue swap stalling. And of course, swap stall against Mualani does not work out. You are just giving Mualani more time to get those stacks up. So I knew the burst was coming, which is why I played the Days of Resistance. Also this way, if they now do another, if they now switch characters and would have, actually it wouldn't have mattered considering there's the fast action. But now you can see this is why the Boar Princess is very important. We saved, Ateya saved us 1 die, Boar Princess has given us 2 dice back, so we are still at 8 dice. And there's just enough damage taken by Layla that, well, just enough protection on Layla that she survives on 1 HP. Unfortunate, but luckily this still means that now that I do a normal attack, Mawiga's follow-up is not spent on Layla. And I still have Mualani's skill, meaning now that they go to Barbara, Barbar has that magical 3 stacks and a pyro application, meaning that I can just do another normal attack to take her out. And well, child alone, there is the threat of a freeze, but luckily I already have Mualani's summon out. Which is why I decided to end my round on Mualani, not only to of course tank more damage with the Day of Resistance, but to make sure that the only character my opponent can freeze next round is Mualani. After all, Mualani's stacks are still gained on the opponent's character even if she is frozen. And also you can see we have Amber's talents here, so we actually have another from not only Mavuika's burst but also Amber's talent to do extra damage. And of course, because we have Golden Droop on Amber and not that good dice to actually burst Mavuika, we go to Amber instead. No surprise my opponent attacking and attacking here. We actually go for no. I was somewhat debating on going into Mualani and, you know, sacrificing her, but there was still the possibility of a, you know, Tartaglia taking out Mualani and then the follow-up from Layla's shooting star freezing Amber so that I wouldn't be able to do anything. So instead I decided to stay on Amber and actually do the normal attack to get that damage. And now if they didn't, well, had they not had healing guards, just switching to Mualani would have attached one bite target onto Tartaglia, meaning that the Shark Missile would have taken him out. But this way they are unable to continue attacking, so I'm actually still able to get that extra stack. Of course we switch to Mualani now, because no matter what they do, which attack they do next round, Mualani is going to die. Meaning we can follow it up by Mavuika burst onto an opponent affected by Hydro. And of course we get lucky with the Pyro Resonance, meaning there's, I think, no way that they can live through the burst from Mavuika. I mean, maybe double Hydro Resonance with Maiden's Beloved and Lotus, maybe something like that would keep them alive, but they only have 5 cards in hand. The likelihood of having that much extra HP and protection is unlikely. Of course now there's a possibility that they have more good stuff coming. And here is the weapon as I guessed. Of course they do have one. But since their arcane, I mean they are running a star deck, their arcane guard, why would it be Winds of Freedom? I mean there's the possibility that it in fact is Winds of Freedom, but I would guess it's Fight for the Death or Day of Resistance most likely. But yeah, I win the game with a nice Mavuika burst with Pyro Resonance, and that is the end of today's video. I will likely see you soon. But yeah,